I laugh, not the game. We're talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that?
Pulls up three-pointer. Bang! Bang! It's good! Wins the game at the buzzer!
Hello, welcome back to the Hoop Junkie podcast, the number one sports podcast in the world.
According to us.
Yeah, I can tell you've been on vacation a little bit, Chance. You already slagging.
Man, I got to get back in a rhythm a little bit. Had a nice little week away, but excited to get back and talk hoops again. I'll try to make up for it from here.
Do you even know what a podcast is now?
Yeah, I don't even remember, man. I tried to watch as much NBA as I could, as much as the wife would allow me to on our anniversary vacation, which is a lot more than I think most people would get a chance to do. But so thankful for that. I'm still a little in tune on what's been going on.
Yeah, for our listeners out there, Chance has been in Arizona for the past week or so. So he's been kind of missing in action. He's been out there taking pictures with coyotes and all kind of stuff, which is mind-boggling to me.
It's really not as crazy as it sounds. They're very harmless. It's like when I first started hiking, like I was afraid of like running into like black bears and all these like wild animals, but then you realize like 99% of the time, like they're very harmless. They're more afraid of you. So like we just stopped and took some pictures and they started walking towards us. At that point, we're like, yeah, we'll go ahead and keep our distance. But yeah, they're more afraid of you than you are of them.
Well, my brother, I am glad that you were back here safe because I don't know what I'd do without you. I missed you, man.
The coyote came after me and I was like, man, I got to record next week. You can't come after me. You might as well go back in the woods. So
we got to drop a pod. Well,
yeah, exactly.
Well, guys, look, we've got an exciting show for you guys today. It's been a lot of action going on while Chance has been away. And so there's some stuff that we need to definitely sit down and we need to recap from the past week and plus some change. So Chance, let's start roll right on into what happened last week, right? So last week, the NBA went through this whole Rivals Week. I don't know if you were able to catch much action from Rivals Week, but if you were able to, you saw like it was a lot of stuff that went on, man. If you watched anything last week, was there any game that stood out to you the most, or
I caught a little bit bits and pieces. Basically the Lakers, all of the situation with them, that definitely caught my eye a lot. The Grizzlies and the Warriors, I definitely caught that one. That was a good game going down to the finish, and the Steph Curry ejection with the mouthpiece. That was always fun. As a guy here in Memphis, I'm definitely tuned to making the Grizzlies Warriors rivalry like a big thing of the future. So that one was a really good finish. And yeah, I caught the ends of a couple other games, and biggest thing is like, the offense is still crazy. Like I know the Bucks put up like 150 points at one point during the week. Like the offense is still just absolutely ridiculous. And that didn't change during my week away. And that doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. That's for sure.
Do you, as a Grizz fan, do you think that the Warriors Grizzly, whatever you want to call it, do you really think that there's a rivalry between those teams? Would you consider
the Warriors? The Warriors will say no because, we haven't taken them out of the playoffs yet, but I will say last year, the Grizzlies gave them their hardest series of the playoffs. I think that's pretty undeniable. And if you think about it, a couple of years ago, we actually knocked them out of the play-in. So like we have eliminated them before, even though it wasn't like actually in the playoffs. So that's my hot take, is we actually have like removed them from the league at some point a couple of years ago, like even though it was just in the play-in. And so I think we've had some back and forths. I mean, we're Christmas Day matchups now. So like, I think we're at that point, and you could just listen to the post-game press conferences between Clay. Like clearly Clay like does not like us. Don't really blame him a whole lot. And clearly the Grizzlies aren't big fans of the Warriors. I think it's all in good fun at the end with Ja and Draymond like going back and forth on Twitter.
Yeah.
But with all that's happened, I think you have to call it a rivalry. There's not a whole lot of like deep rivalries within the NBA. So like, I think this one's right here in front of us, and there's no point ignoring it and pretending like it's not an actual thing.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like on the court, like they all hate each other on the court, at least. You know what I mean?
Right.
I definitely, I'm definitely of the mindset that it's a rivalry in the NBA. Rivalries just aren't what they used to be. Like where players just were literally ready to fight each other all the time. But
Oh yeah, it's not like Jordan driving in and getting trampled by three guys and putting in chokeholds. Like it's not as intense as that
yeah,
anymore. But or
yeah.
like the Reggie Miller against the Knicks, like we need to bring that back. That's like why I love like the Trae Young stuff with the Knicks, where he just embraced the villain role.
Mhm.
Like I think NBA needs more of that, and that is why I completely support the Grizzlies just talking as much trash as possible. Like we can let 29 teams be the rival of the Grizzlies. We just need some more excitement, some more drama. So I fully support it.
Well, hey, first thing is that I don't think rivalries will ever get how they used to be just because players make too much damn money nowadays. So, so that's way over their head as far as like these rivalries getting too intense because they're not going to lose. They're not going to take these big fines that they're getting these days. Then the second piece, I think it's funny if you look back over the past couple years, the Grizz really started out as being like one of those teams that everybody loved. Everybody loves Ja high flying, and they just love how that team plays, right? And that's why like you've seen like over the past couple years, like they keep getting more nationally scheduled games.
Mhm.
To me, I think like this year for the Grizzlies has been a really funny one because now it's like they've almost turned into like the villain of the NBA.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's basically, and like a lot of that goes on like guys like Dylan Brooks too. Like Dylan Brooks is a complete menace, and Grizzlies fans are pretty much split 50-50 on like what they want the overall outcome of Dylan Brooks to be in Memphis, whether he stays or goes. But like ultimately he is the identity of the team, and that's basically spread throughout the league now. And Ja does a lot of his talking, Jaren, Bane, they all talk a lot. And if you ever sit like closer to the court, you just realize just how much they talk. I got to hear a little bit of that in Phoenix as well. But yeah, they all talk a lot of trash, and that's just the new generation that we're in. And some old heads aren't used to seeing that, so they get a little offended by it. And it's one of those things where like I like it, but I also think as Grizzlies fans, we can't be upset when like Warriors fans and other fans like make fun of us when we lose, when we go on a 5-game losing streak. Like you can't be upset because when you talk all that talk, you can ride the highs, but you also have to
Right.
be ready when it comes on the other end. And that's the one thing I think Grizzlies fans and Grizzlies players for that matter too could do a better job of, is like accept that if you put yourself out there that much, when things go the other way,
Right.
you're going to feel the heat too. And that's part of it as well.
I've seen a lot of, just getting on Twitter and the Grizzlies Twitter specifically. There's a lot of people that cry about about getting that smoke back in return, man.
Oh
And
yeah.
I,
Yeah. Grizzlies
I,
fans
I
are sensitive, man.
and I think that adds to it a little bit of why like other fan bases are like, oh man, come on, you can't throw this stuff out there, and then now all of a sudden
Exactly.
when you getting that heat back,
Yeah, it's
uh,
like Josh saying, I'm fine with the West, and then we go on and have like a losing record against the West over the next 15 games. Like we had the big streak in the middle, but we basically lost our whole 5-game Western road trip. Like during the week that I was out of town, we lost every single game. And so,
right.
yeah, people are going to make fun of you when you say you're fine with the West, and then you lose all 5 games against the West, shortly after that. So it is what it is, but then it's also going to be fun when Josh says some crazy stuff and then backs it up. Like it goes both ways. You just have to be ready for either side of it.
Yeah, you gotta love it. And speaking of Grizzlies news, were you while you were out there in the mountains and all that stuff, were you able to see this Triple J stat scandal?
Dude, that stuff went so viral, it even made its way up to the mountains where I was at. I was at the top of the rocks, and people were still talking about the Reddit JJJ scandal. That was heard all around the world. And it was just, I'll just go ahead and give my thoughts on that. That was just absolutely insane when I first read about it, just because their whole argument is like that they're pushing for JJJ to be like defensive player of the year. Like, first off, who in the NBA is pushing for a Grizzlies player to win an award of all things? Like,
I don't
come
think
on, like we're
anybody.
like one of the smallest markets in the NBA. Like the NBA, like that's some deep conspiracy type stuff. And I love that, like, some of the media guys like Kevin O'Connor, shout out to him, like went through and you see where he like watched all 66 blocks, and he said that there were like maybe 2 or 3 of them that were even questionable, but there were also some that could have been blocks that weren't blocks. And so like, I just, it makes me so frustrated, not just with basketball fans, but just like people in general that are so quick to buy into every single conspiracy theory. And I just feel like that is like a plateau of what our life has become now, is that like you just post a couple clips and people will believe anything and take it and run with it. And this is just another example. And yeah, I mean, when you just look at the backbone of it, like, why would this even happen? Like, why would they really care if the Grizzlies players are getting defensive player of the year? Like, newsflash, people play better at home than on the road. Like, that's just part of it,
Home cooking is a thing, even on defense. Okay, like
Yeah.
in this whole situation, man, it really had me like when I had saw it. It was like on a Saturday or something like that, whatever it was. When I had saw it, I was like, I have never in my life of playing basketball, watching basketball, being around basketball for as long as I have never once thought about a stat keeper fudging stats. Like,
Yeah, because there's so many other measures in place as far as like statistical audits that the NBA does. Like, it's not
yeah,
like it's a church league where they just count on that one person who's keeping score to have it all done, send in the books, and you're good to go. Like, it's a lot more
right,
to it that goes into it than that. And I guess that's a news flash for some
yeah.
people.
Well, and then you think about like the money involved too. Like the NBA has a lot of money involved in their partnerships with FanDuel and all these different,
Exactly. That's a
betting
whole nother piece to
things.
it.
So they have to make sure that stuff's accurate. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of people getting screwed out of money. And what that does is that leads to lawsuits. The NBA ain't trying to get sued
Yeah.
over Triple J winning Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, exactly. All that tells you is if he's playing at home, take the over on blocks because we got our home cooking scorekeepers that are going to make sure he gets over every single time, apparently.
I'm curious if like that whole Reddit post, if like it changed, like if it's going to change betting lines a little bit.
Well, I did see where like after that day, like the line for the defensive player of the year, like some of the sports books took it down for like a day or so, and then obviously like it was quickly debunked after that. But it did go down in a couple of sports books, and they stopped taking bets for it. So I mean, it's pretty rare for a Reddit post to go as viral as it did, to where like any national outlet is talking about it. He was on the Chris Vernon show, the local show here in Memphis the other day, and even he acknowledged it. And he said that he just woke up one day, didn't hear about it. He doesn't really check, I don't think Jaron's a big Redditor, but he said that
right.
a lot of people texted him and was like, man, I got your back. I'm here for you. And he was like, oh, that's cool. People got my back. And then he realized like, oh yeah, there's actually like a huge thing going on with him. So it was a crazy story. I feel like with all that we have to talk about with the deadline coming up, they're really trying to do too much by bringing in this. Like, how do you have that much time to go through every single game like that for just a random player? Like it blows my mind. We're definitely getting people's attention. I can say that much.
Yeah, man, that's funny. I mean, hey, that's how you know. That's how you know you got players doing big things when you were
Oh
making.
yeah.
The NBA had to like release a statement after all that.
I really wonder how that guy feels that posted that. Like, there's no way he ever expected it to go this viral. So I'm like, is he just happy even though it made him look pretty stupid? Like, is he just happy it got publicity, or is he like, yeah, maybe I should have thought a little bit more about this before I posted that?
man, here's my conspiracy theory. That guy is probably someone that works for like the Bucks or something. That's
Well,
like
I
trying
think I
to
read
prop
that
up
he's a
Brook
Warriors fan.
Lopez. Oh,
Yeah,
he's a
that's
Warriors.
probably true. I think I read
Makes
that he's a
that
Warriors fan.
that makes perfect sense because
Yeah.
dude, I follow. It's funny, man, because like Warriors Twitter is funny in itself too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
man, the way that they talk about everybody versus all of their players, you would think are all worth 2, 3 first round draft picks according to the Warriors.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I haven't fact checked that, but I did hear from a couple of different outlets that the guy was a Warriors fan. So it definitely
Yeah.
checks out, makes sense, and just adds to the rivalry, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's time. It's time for you to probably go on some Grizzlies Reddit pages and stir some stuff up, and maybe you can go viral, brother.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go through and I'll be like, Steph Curry. I analyzed all of his threes, and on 50% of them, his foot was on the line, and those should have been twos. And I think Steph Curry is overhyped, and I'm just gonna make a huge compilation of it. It's a whole
Yeah.
conspiracy.
No, yeah, Steph Curry is not the all-time 3-point champ. So,
Yeah, I'll find some way to debunk that.
yeah, man. Speaking of all-time records, so uh, going back to a little bit what you talked about with that Lakers Celtics game, I saw that you caught that whole debacle. Uh,
Hmm.
First thing I want to take away from that, I have never seen LeBron James act like that in ever. I was
I've
like,
seen him be pretty dramatic, but not on that level.
not on that level. I was like, okay, LeBron, I get it. Yeah, you were cheated, but this is a bit much here, don't you? Don't you think? I was like, this is a little bit much. But I think this haul brings up a bigger issue with LeBron and the Lakers. I mean, so I was reading this Yahoo Sports article today, and it was this journalist that basically he went through all of the last 2 minute reports from the year. Ben Rohrbach, he went through all the last 2 minute reports just to see, okay, how often was it that the last 2 minute reports came out in the Lakers' favor. And for all of our listeners out there, the NBA puts out this last 2 minute reports after every single NBA game. And what it does is it's supposed to be something that's supposed to just keep officials honest, and then also just show that the league is thorough in its officiating practices. So in this last 2 minute report, they put out all of the fouls and all the calls that officials make in those last 2 minutes of games, and they basically either say those officials they got it right or they got it wrong. And so what Ben did, Ben went through all of them from across the league, from across every team, and just and went to see, all right, how many times did the last 2 minute report come out and say, hey, that the Lakers should have actually gotten this foul call in their favor. And Chance, you know what? Out of all of the teams, do you know how many times officials actually got it wrong for the Lakers, like in a ranking? The Lakers were the second most screwed over team in the league, basically.
Oh, really?
On calls, yeah. So he broke it down. He broke it down into a list, and then number one was actually the Clippers at 63.2% of calls that were that should have been in their favor, and then the Lakers were at 61.8% in last two
Oh, wow.
from the last 2 minute report.
That's a new conspiracy. NBA doesn't want LA to thrive. Both the LA teams getting screwed over by the refs. I think they just don't want LA in there anymore. That's the new hot conspiracy take.
Yeah, we should ask the Kings how they feel about that.
Yeah.
And so and they got a total of like 34 calls incorrect in just the last 2 minutes. And I know like there's some stuff too, like that Lakers Mavs game was a big controversial one too, with Christian Wood pulling on I believe LeBron James' arm or Westbrook's arm, somebody's arm at a late game in that. Then it was like two or three others at the end of the week. And so the Lakers are heated. But I think a lot of this it's more than just being heated at officiating, because like the Lakers need everything to go right now just to win basketball games. And so I think it's easy for them to get caught up in that whole emotion of like, oh my gosh, we fought so hard to get to eke out this win, and then one bad call really just takes us over the edge, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the whole like refereeing thing, like I think both players and fans can become victim of this, to where they single out one specific instance and blame that on the whole game. And the reality is, like, it's very rare for a ref to actually like influence a game to where that one call makes a huge difference. Like we saw it in the NFL game over the weekend where they had the late flag. They got Mahomes the extra 15 yards, and you could say like, oh, that one play changed the whole game. First off, it was the right call. But second off, like that one play doesn't change the whole game. There's still so much else that happens within the game. And even with the LeBron thing, like, yeah, they could have called the foul, or, maybe they would have gone in overtime and then maybe had a 50-50 chance of winning. But at the end of the day, like the refs have a pretty small amount as far as like actually influencing a game. So I think a lot of that gets overblown, and I see a lot of fans do this too, where they just single out one specific play and they just think that if that play changes then the whole game is different. That's very rarely the case. And so I think that gets overblown a little bit. What was really funny to me, did you see the tweet that the like official NBA refs put out after the game? Tell me you saw this.
Yeah, I saw that tweet. Like, do
so
you have the tweet? Do you have it pulled up?
I'm going to read it out. I'm going to read it out in case anybody missed it. So that night, the NBA referee's official account, I swear I thought this was satire when I read it. And they tweeted out, like everyone else, referees make mistakes. We made one at the end of last night's game, and that is gut-wrenching for us. This play will weigh heavily and cause sleepless nights as we strive to be the best referees we can be. Like, come on, man. It's not that serious.
Oh, my God. You missed one call on arguably one of the greatest players of all time, if not the greatest player of all time. And now you feel like you owe him an apology. But you know how many calls you've gotten wrong before? Like,
This one we'll call it sleepless nights, though. They're going to be tossing and turning, just thinking about how they let LeBron down.
I'm telling you, they got a lot of sleep in 06 when Dwayne Wade went to the free throw line 30-some times a game.
Very true. Very true.
I
couldn't believe when I saw that tweet. I couldn't believe that was real.
I was like, "Oh my god, man!" That just goes to show you, man. This is the Los Angeles Lakers, man. They get that. They get special love. I get it.
Yeah,
I get it, man. They definitely bring in a lot of money to the league, so I understand it. But man, I was like, "Come on, man! These officials, they got to be better than that." Yeah, if you got it wrong, cool. Put in the last 2-minute report. That's it.
At the end of the day, like, we rag on the refs a lot, and I don't mean to sound like I'm too pro ref because, like, just wait until the Grizzlies get a bad missed call and I'll completely change everything I'm saying. But, like, at the end of the day, like, these guys are professionals and it's a really, really hard job. I think there could be some more like automation that makes their lives a little easier. I think in 2023, like, we should be taking some steps to get closer to that. But at the end of the day, like, they're going to miss calls. There's only 3 of them out there. They're only going to have the angle, in certain situations. Like, it's going to happen. And I'm just not a big fan of like blaming entire losses on referees. I think that kind of stuff is just like a little played out, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh man, it is, because at the end of the day, this year, just officiating has not been great this year across the board. Period. Like, and the league knows that for sure. The league knows that. But the one thing that is consistent is that everybody has to play with those same officials.
Right.
So, I'm not big on blaming losses on refs. I mean, because it happens. It happens to everybody. It sucks, but I'm
a big believer it all evens out for the most part. Like, for us, we have Ja and Luka on our teams. Like, there's been a lot of times where I see Ja drive in the lane and not get touched, and he's at the line for 2 shots. So then, you complain later when they miss a call on the Grizzlies. But it for the most part, like you said, they all use the same refs. It balances out for the most part.
Yeah, superstars get calls, and that's how it is, And
I guarantee LeBron had a couple free throws earlier in the game where he wasn't fouled, but he still got to the line. Like, it happens,
Exactly, man. But another thing from Rivals Week that also stood out to me, Chance, was Joel Embiid, man. That dude.
This is one thing I was going to say to your point about the rivalries dying off. I do agree with you, but I do think we have a chance to spark this back up with the age of social media with guys like Joel and Kevin Durant, because man, there's some guys that are far willing to troll and go after it on social media. And some of Joel's celebrations, that was just amazing.
Oh man. And I'm not even talking about specifically just that game, but the game against Jokic. Like,
oh yeah.
I felt like Embiid came out there and said, "I'm about to whoop this boy's ass today," to prove a point.
That was him saying, like, I should finally be the MVP after all this time taking the back seat. Like, and it's hard to argue. Like, I think they might be the top 2 right now. I'm still, big on Jokic. We've had this debate before. I'm pretty high on him as an MVP still, but with performances like that, I think it really matters. And I really factor in the head-to-head matchups a lot, like when you go at each other, because the NBA regular season has gotten so devalued a lot. Like, when guys are really like amped up to play in these big games and these big matchups, like, that means a lot to me. Not that I'm a voter or anything, but if I was, like, that would weigh heavily on me. And I thought that was awesome. Like, he was going after him.
Oh man, it was just fun to watch. And I think a lot of this too, the timing was perfect. All the all-star starters had just been named. And then Embiid gets, snubbed basically because of the voting parameters, right?
I still can't believe he's not a starter. That is insane to me.
It's crazy because you sit here, if I said, Chance, name 5-6 of the best players in the league, Joel, it's not going to be too long before you get to Joel Embiid. You know what I mean?
Not to mention just the Eastern Conference. Like, he's a top 5 or 6 in the entire league, and he's not a starter. It's just wild.
Yeah, man, it's so crazy to me on that. I think at some point they'll probably figure it out and they'll just say, all right, 5 best.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, we should be at the point by now, because for one, like, no one takes the All-Star game that seriously. Like, another big hot take for me is I don't even think they should matter that much. I think All NBA is like a much more like credible, verifiable award than the All-Star. So for me, I think just let it be the best five. If three of those happen to be centers, then let the three centers go out there and play. It's not like it's a big, intense game. It has no real, ramifications to the game. Just let it be the five best from the East, the five best from the West. I do like the picking the teams an hour before the game. I think that'll be pretty fun. But
Yeah.
Embiid should be a starter. He should be one of the guys lined up on the wall ready to get picked, and it's a shame that he's not. It's just absolutely crazy.
Well, and I also think with how they've changed the format to where you've got two captains now, the positions doesn't really matter at this point because if you're a smart captain, if somebody goes and they pick a big, you're like, okay, I probably need to go pick me a big too. Like you're gonna make sure your team is balanced. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't really matter. Like if there's three centers that are in the pool for them to pick from, then they can decide how to play it out from there. But it's not like, they're all going to be from the Eastern Conference because they're not even playing together. Like you said, they're drafted. So I think it's absolutely insane. And no discredit to the other Eastern Conference starters. Like they all deserved it too. But like I would replace one of the guards for Embiid if I had the opportunity. Like it should just be the five best at this point for sure.
Who would you replace?
I'd probably replace. You could go Kyrie for games missed, even though he was amazing, like in the games that he did play. But honestly, him or Mitchell, like I'd replace either one of those for Embiid. Like Embiid is a top 2 or 3 player in the East, so I would replace any of them for either of the guards for Embiid.
I would too. Yeah. So to all of our listeners out there, I want you guys to comment below on if you think that the rules should be changed, or even if you think that they should keep them the same. Let us know. All right, Chance. So look, we talked about Rivals Week. We talked about the Triple J stat scandal, but I think the biggest news is probably the trade deadline right now, right? Because now we're 9 days away, something like that.
Yeah, it's on the 9th, so basically a little over a week away. And I think this is the best time of the year, really, as an NBA fan. Like you've got the All-Star break coming up, but the trade deadline. And going into the season, I thought it was going to be like a crazy year as far as trades go. You had so many different names that have been on the market for so long, but at this point, it kind of seems like they're still on, it's still happening. Like Miles Turner just signed his extension, which technically I guess he could still be traded, they say, but it sounds like they're committed to him long-term now. So that's another year down that Miles Turner didn't get traded. The John Collins stuff has kind of fizzled out a little bit. We'll see if they finally make that move. But going into the year, I thought there were so many moves that would happen. And now it seems like it's kind of dwindling down. I'm hoping we're not setting ourselves up for like a disappointing deadline. Maybe, you could be surprised. You never know what could happen once the day comes, but definitely a lot of names that I've got my eye on to see where they go. Well,
I'm really of the belief. I think a lot of these bigger trades are going to just happen in the summer.
Right.
I think a lot of teams are just afraid to pull the trigger on such major moves like mid-season. And then two, if you can make it to the summer, it's gonna be a lot more teams with more assets to trade in the summer. Just accumulate another year of draft picks and things of that sort.
Sometimes, like with the draft protections, like once you're able to convey a pick, then all of a sudden everything else opens up. Like the Mavericks, for example, like you guys owe a pick to the Knicks, but you can't trade anymore until you convey it. So like until the summer, after the summer opens up, you have a lot more draft capital that you can use. So that's a good point. I think the summer could be a lot more interesting. And the play-in also like makes a big difference. Like there's, 2 extra teams from the conference that are fighting for that play-in spot, and it makes teams more hesitant to commit to the rebuild mid-season if they're like that 9, 10, 11 seed, as opposed to in the past when you're the 10 or 11 seed, you're probably not going to sniff the play-in or the playoffs. You go ahead and, sell out. Whereas now more teams have a chance. And I think that's fun. It's exciting, but it also is going to lower the value of the trade deadline in itself.
Yeah. But, it makes sense. Like if you're some teams like even like the Mavericks, right? For example, I saw this week that Dorian Finney-Smith was, his name got thrown around, some particularly with interest from the Utah Jazz, and Danny Ainge is targeting Dorian Finney-Smith to bring him to Utah and build with Lauri Markkanen and him and all that stuff. And I see it, right? For a team like Dallas, if you did want to trade him right now, I think you probably actually would get great value for him right now, just because there's not a whole bunch of people trying to sell right now, like because everybody's trying to get in the play-in, so everybody's looking to add more role players to their roster. So you might be able to get a first-round pick and maybe some change. So I completely see it on that standpoint, on Dallas even considering it. From a fan standpoint, I hate it because I love Dodo. I got the Dodo jersey in my closet right now.
Oh, yeah. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the league. And to that point, he would also fit great with the Jazz because he's just another guy that can do a little bit of everything, 3-and-D. And I feel like that's the Jazz roster is just full of those types of players like Vanderbilt, Beasley. Like there's so many guys like that. And he would just be another one to plug and play. So would definitely be a good fit over there for sure.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But if it does, I completely understand it. On making a move like that. What are some other rumors that you've been kind of keeping your eye on?
I think the biggest one for me is OG Anunoby. I think at this point, he's one of the hottest names out there, and there's a lot of controversy on what his value is. 3 first-round picks has been like the consensus that people are talking about, and it seems like there are some people that are like all in on, that's his value. Some others are thinking that's crazy. Personally, I think 3 firsts for OG is a pretty fair value in my opinion, especially after what we saw with the market over the past summer. I think 3 firsts for OG seems reasonable, especially if it's a contending team and those firsts are all like around, the 20 to 30 mark. And I think he's a guy that you could place on any of the other 29 teams in the league and they immediately become so much better. And so he's a guy that I'm really curious to see what happens with him. I think that's one of the biggest names out there. Fred VanVleet, from the same team is another one that I've seen start around. And then you've got some of the lower players. Bones Highland, I saw last night, they stopped playing him. And basically he, it's all a foregone conclusion that they're going to try to move him to try to find someone else to bring in. And he's a guy that obviously he's young, still in a rookie contract, could be a valuable asset for somebody as like a spark plug off the bench. Bogdanovich as a shooter, I'm curious to see if they move him.
I don't think he gets moved. I don't think Bogdanovich gets moved. No,
I thought so originally, but now I'm leaning towards they might keep him around. He's a good vet presence, and he's having really a career year with them, which is crazy. But I mean, they're dead last in the East. They don't really have anything to play for this year. I could see them if they could get a first-round pick cashing in, but I could also see them just rolling with them and staying for another year and see if they can retool next year. I mean, he'd be a great guy to have around with the young guys next year. You get Cade back. Ivy has a year of experience. You throw Bojan in there, as a vet presence. I could see that too, but also, if someone's offering you a first-round pick for a 34-year-old wing, like it's kind of hard to turn that down too. So we'll see.
Well, but I saw that Detroit's asking for 2 first-round picks, and so and I kind of disagree with you thinking that OG is worth 3 picks. Like,
you don't think?
Don't
so?
Get me wrong. I think OG can end up get him in the right system. He could probably flourish. And the teams that I've been
my argument for that
is
I think every system is the right system for OG. I don't think you need a right system for him.
No. Yeah. OG is going to fit in anywhere. He 3-and-D guys like that, they fit in anywhere, right? But I think that from an offensive standpoint with him, I think his game could really go to a whole nother level if he fits into the right system with the right players around him. And like the 2 teams that he's been closely mentioned to has been like the Knicks and the Memphis Grizzlies, right? I think in both of those systems, I think that he would work well, and then both of those teams have the draft capital to trade 3 picks and it not even really be a problem. So I can completely see how 3 picks is the number right now. But when you go back and you look at like history on how we've traded draft picks, I think the market is so inflated right now with the cost of these draft picks. Like back in the day, superstars got traded for 3 draft picks.
Right.
And now it's crazy. We're talking about OG Anunoby being worth 3 picks, Bogdanovich being worth 2 draft picks. Like, what is going on with people, man?
I'll give you Bogdanovich. He's definitely not worth 2 due to his age, like in the mid-30s. Like I would not give up 2 firsts for him. But for OG, just because I do think he would be such a good fit for a team like the Knicks or for the Grizzlies. And the thing that I think makes the difference too is teams like the Knicks and Grizzlies that have more assets, those picks are going to be more short-term picks. So like for the Grizzlies' sake, they have the Warriors pick for next year. So they could give their 23, 25 and the Warriors pick. So it's not like they have to give out a pick from like 26 or 27. At that point, Ja Morant might be, 28 at that point. You never know what could happen. I think if the picks are all relatively sooner and more guaranteed to be in that late 20s range, I think that makes more of a difference as compared to a team that has to trade like their 24, 26, and 28, or like a Lakers team that's trading picks like a decade in advance. Like, I think those situations make it a little different too. That's why I'd be more on board for an OG type trade for the Grizzlies in particular, because the latest pick you're giving up is your 2025. And at that point, your core players are all still like in their mid to late 20s. You're still supposed to be good at that point compared to, trading picks way far in advance. I mean, you've seen that backfire in the past, with the Celtics and Nets trades and, some other teams, even the Rudy Gobert trade that just happened. Like, it could definitely backfire and it would be a risk, but I think I'm just really high on OG, and I think he'd be a great asset. So I would personally trade the 3 first for him, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. It might be a situation where the Raptors are asking for 3 and everybody agrees with you and they don't want to give up those 3. And all of a sudden he's back in Toronto, in the spring. So we'll see.
Well, and that's like, and not just OG and not Bogdan, Jay Crowder is going. Have you seen what Phoenix is asking the Bucks for Jay Crowder? Like,
I saw a couple rumors. What was the latest that you saw?
Man, let me pull this thing up, man, because when I saw this chance, I said we have got to be like, I know that.
I'll tell you, as you pull it up, personally, I think he's worth a first. I think another like older vet presence, 3-and-D type guy. I think he's worth a first. I have a feeling what you're about to pull up is a lot crazier than just that.
Yeah, of course he's worth a first, but. Jordan Nwora, he's young. He's still got little upside to him as a role player. He's not going to be a star or nothing, right? But he could develop into a AJ Crowder level player. Serge Ibaka, George Hill, and multiple second round draft picks.
I don't know. So no first round picks.
Yeah, no first round picks right now. It's either 2 or 3 second round picks.
I think that might not be completely crazy. So Jordan Nwora, he was like a mid second round pick, I believe, and then Ibaka's an aging guy. George Hill's an aging guy. I don't know. I think that might not be, and I guess all those guys are probably more for like making the salary match.
Well, but man, I mean, I get it, but when you sit there and you look at that, like, Jay Crowder is a great rotation player at this, even probably still at this point in his career, but we can't just forget and act like the whole reason why the Suns are in this situation is because they said, "Hey Jay, your better years are behind you, and we're going to start this young guy Cam over you." Like,
who's better at this point in his career. Yeah,
just because I don't understand why we've got this revisionist history going on about and thinking like, oh yeah, this is the same Jay Crowder from when he was with the Celtics 5 years ago, whatever, how many years ago it was.
Right,
man. I just don't think the Bucks should do that. Make a trade you're going to trade 3 players away and multiple second round draft picks. I don't think that Jay Crowder's worth it. I don't think he moves the needle for you that much. But then also at the same time, I do understand the Bucks are in a situation where we got the best player in the league right now. We got to do whatever we can to put pieces around him that's going to be big time contributors. So I get that piece too. However, my biggest argument about this whole situation is just that I think that people are out of their mind with most of these GMs. I think a lot of GMs just need to just hold their ground and just let this market cool down, because what's going to happen is GMs keep sitting around with these high asking prices. GMs going to start getting fired because their team ain't doing nothing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's definitely going to be a lot more buyers than sellers for a lot of the reasons that we've already talked about with the play-in and the risk of assets. So I'm really curious to see how it turns out if the value of guys changes, because there are just so many guys that are wanting to buy and so many teams that are hesitant unless they're getting like a complete haul. And I think, the Rudy Gobert trade kind of flipped the market. And then all of a sudden we realized like, okay, that might've been a huge mistake. So now it's kind of flipping the market the other way where teams are going to be more hesitant. So I'm really curious to see how it all shakes out. I mean, there's a lot of big names that could be on the move, or a lot of like, I won't say big names, but kind of like mid-level names like your Bogdanovich, Jakob Pertl's another one that we see, thrown around a lot that I think could be a valuable asset for some teams. So, I mean, I definitely think there could be some fireworks, but I also think it could be setting us up for a situation where like the biggest move of the deadline is like Bones Highland going to like a mid-level team, and that's like the biggest fireworks. I hope we're not at that point, but I'm trying to prepare myself to know that like there might not be a team that wants to give up 3 firsts for OG, and then the Raptors might not bulk in anything less, and that that could kind of scale everything else downwards too. So it could be a situation where it's really quiet, but personally, I'm hoping that we see some more fireworks. I mean, last year, like who would have ever thought the Sabonis Halliburton trade would happen? Like that came out of left field completely,
Right.
and that could happen again too. Like there's still, teams could surprise us. We don't know fully what's going on behind closed doors. As much as we love Woj and Shams for all that they report, like there's always some secrets that get thrown out in the back pocket at the very end. So there might be some more fireworks that we just don't know about too. We just have to wait and see.
Well, I mean, I believe OG's getting traded because at this point, I don't think it doesn't favor the Raptors to hold on to OG right now at this point. So
Right.
I'm pretty convinced that he gets moved, but we'll see.
Yep, it's going to be exciting.
All right, Chance. Let's go ahead and jump into the players of the week.
All right. So players of the week for the past 7 days, once again, just absolutely insane numbers, but we've got to start with Damian Lillard over the past week, averaging 44 points a game, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and a steal. He's got to be the number one spot. Next, we've got to go Giannis, who I think is getting a little slept on with some of the numbers he's putting up with Middleton out. 39.5 points, 14 rebounds, and 4.5 assists over the past 7 days. And finally, got to give credit to Steph Curry, 35.7 points a game, 8.7 assists, 5.3 rebounds over the past 7 days. All three of them just putting up ridiculous numbers. So that's the top 3 players of the week for this week.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of the Hoop Junkies podcast. Until next week, we'll holla at you. Please make sure to subscribe, like, and share, and do whatever you got to do to get this podcast out. Peace.